Jonas Vingegaard edged to victory on the abrupt uphill finish in the third stage of the CRO. The cyclist finally secured his first win after the Tour de France. It was a tough battle, but in the end, he managed to pull it off. In this video, we'll talk about Vingegaard's amazing triumph and how he managed to pull it off, so stay tuned. First up, Vingegaard says it was a very difficult finish for him. After claiming victory, Vingegaard said that it was a tough race for him. The road was very bumpy, and it was difficult for him to finish the race. The cyclist also talked about how happy he was after winning in the last part of the season. He said his legs didn't give up on him today and helped him win this race. The race was definitely a real competitive battle from start to finish. Vingegaard crossed the victory line, Oscar Onley finished second, Matej Mohoric followed behind in third, and his teammate Jonathan Milan held on to the GC lead and finished fifth. Up next, the nerve-wracking final part of the race. Anyone that was watching along would tell you that the final 1.6-kilometer stretch of the uphill road was really what dictated the finish. It seemed like a proper wall with pitches up to 15%, along with a section of narrow gravel in the last kilometer towards the Shrine of the Madonna of Loreto. Midway on the white dirt road, Milan charged to the front with only 600 meters to go. Then Omar Fraile went onto a cement surface at the steepest part of the road. Milan returned the favor with one more attack, but he was passed by Onley, Mohoric, and Vingegaard. Vincenzo Albanese just managed to get by and finished fourth. There was just so much happening in that race. Onley had a 2-point advantage over Tobias Pollock, which helped him to take over as the KOM leader, and Milan ended up securing the leader's red jersey. Let's talk about Vingegaard's 8-second lead. The win helped Vingegaard in gaining an 8-second lead over Onley and Mohoric in the classification ahead of a final stage in Zagreb. Zagreb offers several bonus seconds ahead of a very likely sprint finish. It doesn't matter if Vingegaard secures the overall or not, this victory has placed the Danish cyclist on the fast track for Lombardia next weekend. Vingegaard is set for a battle with Tour de France rival Tadej Pogacar at the Italian Monument. It'll be their first race together since they fought for the yellow jersey in France. The cyclist has chosen the Croatian option, unlike many other Lombardia challengers, including Pogacar, who's riding through the Italian classics. Let's talk about some highlights from the race. The 157-kilometer-long stage began inland in Sinj. It then rolled south to the Adriatic Sea for a turn north to touch the coastline to the finish in Premosten. With 17 kilometers remaining, a full circuit was punctuated by the second category climb. It was followed by the uphill finish of Cat 3 in Premosten. The team Bahrain Victorious pulled a lot at the front of the peloton, while Ineos Grenadiers and Jumbo Visma were willing to take part as a group of 7 cyclists created the break of the day early on. They moved to a 2:30 advantage after the first 20 kilometers. The leading group included Victor Pataki, Vedid Karic, Mark Christian, Pollock, Manuel Tarozzi, Tilan Finks, and Matthias Reutemann. They absorbed the third intermediate sprint point of the day at Sibenik while holding a 1:43 gap and with 35 kilometers to ride. Pollock was able to take top points at the first intermediate sprint in the split. He was followed by Karic through Premosten and then Reutemann at Sibenik. Smooth inclines over the next 25 kilometers led to the base of the first ascent of the KOM. That's where Pataki and Pollock tried to get ahead, but the peloton gained momentum to make a run for the finishing circuit. The break began to stumble with just under 20 kilometers remaining. Pollock and Pataki were having a difficult time staying in touch, and Tarozzi became the last man standing as the peloton made an impending catch. Next up, how Vingegaard's team led him to victory. With just under 14.5 kilometers left in the race, a left-hander on the small road led across 3.4 kilometers at 5.4% across the climb of KOM. Ineos Grenadiers were the leaders, while Jumbo Visma and Bahrain Victorious were tucked behind. On the ascent, Uno X sent Niklas Egg in front with 2 others in a short appearance, but to no avail. The yellows of Jumbo Visma and Uno X drove the speed of the leading group with 6 kilometers to race into a headwind. Back on the descending main road with just 2.7 kilometers to go, Milan was still leading the front of the main group. Vingegaard was protected by his team, who led him to victory. Not to mention, Vingegaard moved to second place. After this victory, Vingegaard had some bonus points at the finish line. These points move him up to second place in the Tour of Croatia, placing the Danish sensation just 1 second behind Bahrain Victorious Milan. Finally, Vingegaard had a hard time after Tour de France. The DS of Jumbo Visma said that Vingegaard had difficulty adapting to life after winning the Tour de France. After a 90 mile per hour or 100 mile per hour, athletes can can experience psychological and physiological depletion. Even if those athletes come away with the medal, the gear shift can be alienating. All athletes, including cyclists, go through similar adversity. Dreams of Grand Tour wins inspire budding youth cyclists to turn pro, and it occupies their thoughts during pedal strokes and countless hours in training. Something similar happened to Jonas Vingegaard after his Tour de France victory. He's a private person who hails from the north of Jutland. He prefers to stay as far as he can from the outside world. On returning to Denmark after his victory, he walked out on the balcony of the Copenhagen City Hall to meet the huge crowds that gathered to celebrate his victory. On the recent Tour of Denmark, Vingegaard didn't line up for his team on what would have been another victory parade around his home country. The team's DS said he had difficulty adjusting to life after the Tour de France. It can be stressful to have so many people around you from day to night. It's much harder than people think. Now, moving on to other related news. First up, Mohoric snatches a victory. Mohoric was second on the stage and bonus seconds earlier in the day. He managed to overhaul Vingegaard's 8-second lead to win the CRO race on the final stage. Mohoric finished second behind Elia Viviani in Zagreb as Vincenzo Albanese stood on the podium. There was final day disappointment for Vingegaard as he lost out on overall victory by just 1 second. Mohoric added 6 more seconds at the finish line to the 3 he had already taken at an intermediate sprint earlier on the 158-kilometer stage from Svetonedelgia. Bahrain Victorious remained in control of the main group on behalf of Mohoric. The team was hoping to launch him to the overall win in the final sprint in Zagreb. The break held a small lead of only a minute until they were brought back as the cyclists hit the closing circuit. Ineos Grenadiers stood with Bahrain at the front of the peloton for the run-in to the line. Their rider, Viviani, was among the quickest finishers of the race. Mohoric raced to the finish line in Vivian's wheels. He was led out by his teammate and winner of the first 2 stages, Jonathan Milan. Up next, the CRO race safety mess leaves a bitter taste in the mouth of the peloton. Come to Croatia, they said. It'll be fun, they said. It wasn't so fun for the riders because of Croatia's weather. Rain was expected every day of the race. The first day of the race looked utterly miserable. Severe weather conditions aren't expected in a late September race. What wasn't expected was a risk to the safety of the riders. The last stage into Zagreb was marred by a finishing circuit that forced all the viewers to hold their breath, and it wasn't because of the intensity of the racing action. Into the final kilometer of the race, the images being broadcast became increasingly concerning. The riders had to sweep around the corners with unprotected traffic boulders on the left. They were whizzing past pedestrians on the road who were walking against the direction of the race. The difference between pavement and road became non-existent. It was also garbage collection day in Croatia, as bins were lined up the street as the riders zoomed by. A family was standing on the curb and they jumped back at the last moment, narrowly avoiding a crash. There were also parked cars on either side of the road. There were just too many safety concerns, and many riders shared their disappointment after the race. Last but not least, Laporte claimed solo victory at Binche-Chimay-Binche. Christophe Laporte grabbed a solo victory in the Belgian one-day Binche-Chimay-Binche. Norwegian champion Rasmus Tiller claimed the second position. Laporte dropped Rasmus some 600 meters from the line when those two clipped away from a small break late on the finishing circuit Binche. Huge Page claimed the third position in the thrilling race. That's a wrap for this video. What was your favorite moment of the CRO race? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.